Hello and welcome to wjlive on this lovely Friday afternoon. I am Abby Liebing. I am a reporter here with the Western Journal, and today I am joined by Richard Moorhead, a fellow reporter. So it's another episode with all reporters with our hot takes. Today we are going to be talking about the economy. A myriad of issues are troubling our economy right now. As the Biden administration is scrambling to deal with inflation, student loans, an upcoming recession. And so we are going to start diving into that. To begin with, though, Biden has been making some pretty interesting comments and plans about student loan forgiveness. So, Richard, fill us in on that.
That's right. So a new White House report today indicates that the Biden administration is considering forgiving $10,000 in student loan debt to individual borrowers. This comes after a process in which officials within the White House were considering how much to forgive. And just today it came out that $10,000 is the figure that the federal government is most looking at. So this would forgive a significant amount of student loan debt for maybe your average borrower. But there actually are some progressives who are upset with Biden. They want him to forgive even more. They'd prefer to see the federal government forgive up to $100,000 of student loan debt, or even more than that. So really, it seems almost like a slap in the face to the Americans who are suffering from inflation.
Yeah.
It's a political bribe, if you will, I think you could call it. But it definitely seems like an incident of Biden rewarding his supporters rather than handing an olive branch to his detractors.
Right. There's been a lot of fluctuation among Biden's supporters, especially among the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people thought that, young, white, college-educated males would be his base. But that has...
You mean females?
And females. Males and females. Actually, males is a little bit stronger. But
Interesting.
But that has wavered a little bit. So do you think that, this seems to be Biden just trying to buy back his supporters?
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to affect them, especially as we see the midterms coming up and then rolling around for the next presidential election?
Well, it is a little bit difficult to imagine a passionate, diehard Joe Biden supporter, isn't it? I don't think there really is such a thing. There's definitely, Bernie Sanders has those people for days.
Oh yeah, because of his philosophy and his idealism, something.
Yeah, so I think what Biden, the student loan forgiveness plan, that's what he's going for. He's going for that demographic, that crowd. In some senses, maybe people who have even more student loan debt than $10,000. So he's shoring up the Democratic base. So that's what you want to do in front of the midterms, because the party that wins the midterms is the party that turns out their base.
Right.
So in a certain sense, it's politically, tactically, it's a wise move. But he faces the risk of exploding inflation even more and perhaps incurring even more of a red wave with impressionable swing voters.
Right. And I think to be clear, the loan forgiveness is for anybody who is making below $150,000, I believe. Or if you're a couple, if you're filing for $300,000 or less for a yearly salary. So that would be the majority of people in their 20s, who are getting out of college. Most 22-year-olds are not leaving college, entering the workforce, and making $150K their first couple of years. And so it's definitely geared towards the very young, new college graduates, not even necessarily people in their 30s and 40s as much, because if you still have debt by the time you're in your mid-30s, you're probably making a decent salary. So I think that this is definitely a ploy for just go after kind of the young and the dumb. Get the young and the dumb to be your support base to try to do anything to stop what people are predicting as the red wave coming up in November. But I feel like people can't help but see this as just exorbitant spending in the midst of inflation and just terrible economic crisis. So have you seen anybody reacting to this? How would you predict people are reacting to this sort of spending from the government for student loans?
I've seen some DC progressives who don't agree with it, that it's not enough for them, as I alluded to earlier. Um, it doesn't it kind of seem as if $150,000 is kind of a high ceiling?
Yeah, it is a
If
pretty
I-
high ceiling.
If I were a Democrat, what the student loan forgiveness that I would propose politically would get your nurses, get your teachers, get your real essential workers who would benefit from it much more so than the comms director at Media Matters, and
Right.
funnel it towards them. But it seems as if Biden's going for an unforced error in that respect, and that he's going to be bailing out white-collar professionals.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be bailing out the upper class, which no one likes.
With money coming from a carpenter or an electrician. They're the
Right.
ones paying for it.
Exactly. And I mean, you can't help but have philosophical problems with the idea of bailing out student loans, because then it starts to propagate the idea of just, no responsibility for people going to college. They're just like, oh, I'll just go spend tons of money because it's going to be forgiven by the government, which is just it's a terrible model. I am not a proponent of student loans being forgiven at all under any circumstance. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's ever an acceptable limit or circumstance?
Well, if there ever was an acceptable circumstance, now would certainly not be the time.
Right.
Now seems like it would be the worst possible time to do that, unless you were merely considering political considerations, like
Right.
the White House is doing.
Right.
And so, speaking of these political considerations, Biden tweeted today that he spiked the football in celebration of lowering inflation 2% from, I think it was from 6% to 4%.
Yeah. He's made some outrageous claims.
Yeah. And so it seems a little bit premature, actually. I would probably wait until you get inflation closer to where it was when Trump was president. But
Right.
that's not stopping Biden from celebrating, it seems.
Right. So talking about inflation, because everything that is going on right now has to be viewed with the backdrop of we have terrible inflation. This is the worst inflation we've seen since 1984. Economists, Wall Street, banks, everyone is acting a little bit like the sky is falling in, which I can't entirely blame them, because it does seem that it is about to fall in on us. But then Biden, you mentioned that he made these comments. He tweeted about inflation going down, and that it's all on him. He's made inflation go down. Whoopee! I'm the magician. But why would he make this claim? Because inflation has not yet gone down. Maybe he's seen trends of it going down, but we don't have the official report until the beginning of June on how inflation was in May. And there are not many policies that he's been directly involved with that have anything to do with inflation in the economy. So what is he doing?
He's celebrating us going from Venezuela to Cuba.
Ah,
That's progress for him.
that's a good
And
analogy.
it's a step in the right direction. I mean, it's maybe if you're familiar with Dante's Inferno, it's going from the 9th circle of hell to the 8th circle of hell.
Yeah.
But really, the person who deserves credit for any of this, for all of this, inflation, the deficit, the person who deserves credit is actually Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin has been the one, the father of what Biden has actually accomplished in office.
Right.
So really what Biden should have done is congratulated Joe Manchin and appointed him as vice president.
Shake it up. Manchin's the true hero, and we
Yeah.
all know it. But I would say Manchin, it's not just what Manchin has done, but it's what he has stopped from being done. It's very clear, if you're at all confused, a large part of the inflation crisis that we're going through right now is directly caused by the stimulus packages that kept being passed again and again throughout COVID. So actually, we have both administrations to blame for that. Trump and Biden take the blame for that. Because essentially what went on is the government decided to go ahead and take the idea of universal income for a spin, and pass the massive stimulus packages. Each one of you got checks from the government to help during the COVID pandemic. which, at the moment people may have enjoyed, but here we are 2 years
I really
later.
enjoyed mine.
Oh yeah, it was
I
great.
got the best electric guitar I've ever had with my first stimulus check.
Well
And I will
spent.
never forget that check for that purpose.
Well spent.
Yeah, it was well spent. We're paying for it now, but
Yeah. The problem is you're paying for it now. Everyone knows, even the Fed finally admitted a few weeks ago, okay, the stimulus packages did spike inflation. That is why we are where we are today. And, we're seeing inflation across the entire economy. Everyone, of course, is wailing over the gas prices, most particularly because it's outrageous to be paying $5 and $6 a gallon for gas. And yet Biden is still living in some sort of fantasy world that he's like, I'm bringing down inflation. Inflation's fine. But let's pay for student debt, which is sort of like another version of a stimulus package.
yeah.
And do you see any reasoning, like sound logic behind his claims or anything that he's doing?
Really, I mean, so as I said, he should be thanking Joe Manchin, but he's also taking credit. Trump set the 2021 deficit before he left office.
Right.
So he's taking credit for Trump's budget that was enacted against his will by Joe Manchin. So for him to take credit for the deficit is extraordinarily rich. That would be like if, you destroy your house and then you talk about how good of a demolition expert you are. So it's classic political spin from the Biden administration. I think what you have seen is that Build Back Better is dead.
Oh, completely dead.
Yes, that is under the cemetery. And for Biden to be pushing this student loan package, that's the more modest form. That's how he delivers his political campaign promises rhetoric to his supporters. And maybe that's going to go the same route that Build Back Better did. Maybe it's going to end up with another colossal legislative project that goes nowhere. And that would almost be the most convenient thing economically for Biden, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Biden is so lucky that Build Back Better failed.
Oh, he is lucky. He is lucky in that. We'll see if his luck streak continues. Although it seems that things will start to go against him in the spending department because always walking hand in hand with inflation is the fact that people finally start to wake up to the fact of how much the government is spending, and they're like, maybe this isn't great, which works out well for the Republicans, and why so many people are saying, all right, the red wave in November is a done deal because people don't want the government spending more money and inflation getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So I feel like every time Biden takes one step forward, he takes 2 steps back.
Yeah, and kind of getting back to the gas prices, I can't remember who originally said this, but someone told me that if you ever wanted to be a dictator in America or in any other country, all you would have to do is deliver $2 gallon gas to the people in perpetuity. You would never have to worry about any domestic opponent. That is the universal law of politics almost. Low gas prices. It's all we ask for.
That's
all
it.
the public
We ask
wants.
for one thing.
We can get Biden forgetting how old he is on stage if he delivers decent gas prices.
It's
If
true.
he can't do that, he's in deep trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like that is just coming to bite him so hard right now because, at the end of the day, when it comes down to the general population, everyone is looking out for themselves and they just want cheap prices.
Yeah.
They don't really care about our country's deficit. They a lot of times don't really care how we look on the international stage or anything else that's going on.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even care about certain, big ticket rights. They're just like, money. If I am paying too much to get my truck filled up, something's wrong.
Someone's got to go. Someone's got to be held responsible. Someone's got to be fired.
Put the head on the guillotine. It's time to rock and roll.
Right, and that's why, it does almost kind of surprise me that, Biden's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Biden has been a politician for 50 years.
Yeah,
he knows
for
a thing or
decades.
two about delivering gifts and bribes. I will
Right.
give that to him. So for him to still be canceling oil and gas lease, he must have the most hardened climate change ideologues in there. that
Right.
are persuasive enough to get him to forsake political common sense.
Right. It's because it literally does not make any sense to cancel our contracts with Russia. Okay. Which really
That one kind of makes sense.
That one makes sense, but it makes sense with the assumption of, okay, we got to make up for it somewhere else in the market.
Yeah.
Because that's just how the economy works. But then when you progressively are like, no, we are not going to let it work itself out in the market because we are not going to allow for domestic drilling. And we are not going to give leasing for land from the government. It just, you're like, well, what did you expect? Did you expect all that to happen and just nothing would be affected and we'd magically go on?
That's why the Putin price hike line is so weak. I
Right.
feel as if it would be easier to market that if he was buffing every single federal gas, oil drill, nuclear, everything. But, so not only has Biden clamping down on that, he's canceling existing gas leases.
Yes.
I don't know what he would have to do, but to get Venezuela and Saudi Arabia, get them in the picture. Venezuela has oil reserves that dwarf Saudi Arabia and the United States.
Biggest oil reserve in the world, like times 10.
And that hasn't materialized. And then you have Biden on, delivering speeches saying this is part of a transition. It's a transition to being a third world country.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone in the administration, Democrats, people in the Federal Reserve, everyone is like, oh, this is all just, transition. We're just transitioning to the post-COVID world. It's transitory inflation, which is not a thing. It's, this and that, and we're just kind of on the road to recovery. And actually, it's the complete reverse. We could have been on the road to recovery, but we took the exit right into recession, and that is where we're headed right now.
Yeah, it's looking more and more likely. There are people who have even argued that we're in what feels and looks like a recession right now. Obviously, the economists have a set of criteria that defines what is a recession, but a recession is a cessation in economic activity.
Right.
Right? And, there are Americans, that's what they see happening in front of their own eyes.
Right. And it's just undeniable at this point. You can kind of argue back and forth on, exactly what stage of the recession or what kind of a recession are we heading into, or has it fully arrived yet? But there's pretty much no doubt at this point that we are staring straight into the face of a recession. Really? Most recently, there have been the three big dogs,
The three big dogs.
who have called the recession: Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, and Elon Musk. Elon Musk is kind of, that fun side figure, but Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo have pretty much come down on the side of we are headed for a recession / we're kind of sort of already there.
Now, what would be the policy that could avert this situation?
The policy is what the Federal Reserve is trying to do right now. So the Federal Reserve hiking interest rates is their best shot at trying to stall a recession. Because when you hike interest rates, you're hoping to target inflation, but the risk there is that you could also damage the workforce. And if you damage the workforce and drive up unemployment and also can't drive down inflation, then you're in a full-blown recession. Which means, your stock markets are tanking, the GDP is shrinking, and things are just headed downhill very, very quickly. So the Fed, that is why they've put into practice a series of hikes over the next several months. They are trying to achieve what's called a soft landing, which means, okay, we abate inflation, but we're not spiking unemployment. The problem is they tried that. We are now on our second interest rate hike.
So 1% now.
Yeah, 1% now. And it's of a series. More are coming, but already on this second one, everyone is looking at the markets, at the general economy, at the unemployment numbers, and they're like, we missed it. We missed the soft landing, which means barring a miracle, or I don't know, World War III blowing up.
That'd be good for the economy.
Yeah, it actually would be good for the economy. We are headed into a recession, no doubt.
It is hard to believe, Americans who check their 401k, they check their Robinhood, and they see a horror movie going down. It's hard to imagine that this someone's doing them a favor somewhere
Right.
through doing these price hikes. Because if this is treatment, if this is the prescription, it's hard to imagine what the surgery would be,
Oh,
what
gosh,
the
I know.
consequences would be. So it's really it's a frightening time economically that I can't even remember in my life. I was
It is.
14, 13, 15 years old in the Great Recession. I was a little bit younger than that, but I vaguely remember it. And I cannot remember my adult life economic pressure on the average middle class person.
Yeah, the fact that this is just going everywhere, it's just completely spread across the population, the economy, is remarkable. Because 2008, horrendous. 2008 was a real problem. High unemployment. There were issues. But at the end of the day, 2008 centered mostly on the banking system.
Yeah, speculation.
Right. This recession is not centered on the banks. The banks will actually be fine through this recession.
It's the supply.
It's the supply.
It's real products, things that we don't make in America anymore.
It's the actual supply. It is the actual workforce. It is, actually not having enough workers and not having enough raw materials. We're not talking about money. We're talking about actual things that we don't have.
This is what it comes down to when you have an economy that our biggest economic items are websites, social media, the internet.
Everything's
you can't
fiat.
eat that. You can't
Yeah.
eat that.
I
You
know.
can't fuel your car with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I think we'll be able to look back on this era because it is pretty unprecedented in a first world country in the modern era to have this kind of a recession. This is very much like the recession of ye olden days.
This might be the darkest WJ Live I've ever seen.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's encouraging.
That's no other way to put it.
No, it's true. I mean, I think we're both a little bit pessimistic here, but also to be realistic, it's not good, guys.
It's not good. It's not good, so
It's not good.
there's no other better way to put it. I guess we're going to leave it at that.
There is one high note, I guess.
note, okay.
The only high note that I can think of, because, it's Friday. Let's try to end on a higher
Okay.
note. There are tons of jobs that are open. So if you're looking for a job, there's lots of jobs in the job market. That comes along with other problems. But, it's a good time to be an unemployed person looking for work.
That's true.
Because for this short window, we don't know how much longer it'll last. There are enough jobs in the economy. There's just not enough people to fill them. So go fill them if you don't have a job.
And if you can drive to work, if you can even afford to live in like the Sun Belt cities where all these jobs are going down.
Yeah.
A lot of people who live where we are in Phoenix, they're not even going to be able to afford to live here.
Oh, right. I completely understand that. I'm
Yeah.
facing that right now. But
I thought this was supposed to be the good part of all
I'm
this.
sorry. Well, that
It's
was
getting worse.
That was the slightly bright side of it. I don't know what to tell people. I don't know what to tell people when the economy is so horribly messed up that there's nothing that we little people can do.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do.
Actually, there's not really anything that big people can do either.
Abandon ship.
Yeah.
Flee for your lives.
Try to save money.
This has
Make
been WJ Live.
Make wise decisions.
Yeah.
But this has been WJ Live for today. Happy Friday. We are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time? No, wait, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. My time zones are all messed up. If you have enjoyed watching this show today, make sure that you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Click on the little bell so that you always get notifications of when we go live, because you never want to miss our hot takes and our predictions of the world falling apart.
You will learn the hour of your doom.
Yes, you will learn. We are predicting from here on out. And also, remember to go support us at westernjournal.com/join and become one of our supporters so that we can keep things like WJ Live and the Western Journal alive. We're a small family-run company. We are not big tech. So we are here trying to bring you the truth of what's going on in the world today. And we would very much love and also need your support in that. So until next time, have a great weekend, and we hope to see you back here on Monday.
See ya.